I'm still waiting on seals to put together this water pump. But cleaning out this radiator core in this stock tank, well, it gave me an idea. So we're going to build the components to pressure test a radiator on a classic Caterpillar D4 or any other farm tractor for that matter. Now, this is a topic that something I've been afraid to even touch for years and years, but now I got more time than money, so I might as well give it a go. I'm still waiting for the stud to arrive that is going to screw into there, and I have to make it, but I've got a piece of stainless steel 3/8 all thread that'll work perfect, and I can cut it to length. For this radiator, I'm going to have 4 major compartments that I'm going to need to seal up airtight. The overflow right here, which also might be a good place to put a pressure gauge, the top outlet in the tank, the filler where the radiator cap goes, and the port on the lower tank of the radiator. I'll just install the factory drain plug back in the factory position. To pressure test this radiator, it's not going to take a lot of pressure, so you're going to want an air gauge that really doesn't need to go up more than 20 pounds max. We're going to pressure test ours at probably 10 to 13 max. You're also going to need a Schrader valve. More important than anything, you're going to need a pressure regulator because you don't want to overpressurize the system and blow something out on your freshly finished radiator. These flanges, they're not going to be terrible to make. I just need to drill 2 holes and cut a shape roughly that size. Same for this one. I'm going to cut out a metal piece roughly this size, drill a hole in the middle. I can either screw a bolt in there to seal it, or when I get the stud in here, I can just put a nut on top. In my case, the radiator cap is probably not going to seal very well. It definitely is going to leak air around the middle here because there's no gasket to really seal it. There is a copper one underneath of there, but I don't trust it. We're going to make something completely fresh. I've got 3 of these tractors, 4 actually, that use this type of radiator cap, and none of them had it with it. I had to buy these. These are all repro. First things first, I'm going to make a cover for this right here. Up on the shelf, I've got several containers of old factory Caterpillar O-rings. Hopefully I got something that'll work. There we go. If I don't want one that thick, I've got this thinner one as well. For the lower tank, Dad's already made a gasket, so I can use that for a pattern. I've got a couple of old O-rings. These are for a water meter, a large one, and a smaller one, so one of those might work. Because of the shape up top, I'm going to have to get slightly more creative. With a little bit of work, we can tighten it down, and it'll seal. Now it's time to make the plates. I'll lay these out. This is a piece of 1/4" steel that I'm going to use. Now I've got patterns that Dad made, and I've got the cork that goes in the top cap, so I can use that as a pattern too. This one's substantially bigger, so I might as well take this opportunity to make a gasket for this, because we don't have one yet. Yeah, that thermostat housing looks nasty, but we'll worry about that later. Let's make our gasket. Oh, that should be more than enough. I'll go ahead and mark it out, and then get to cutting. Give myself a little bit of room in between there, so that I don't get into it with the torch. I think might be okay right about there. If I do this right, I can use that existing hole in here. Or, I don't know. I'm not going to make it work either way. Well, we'll just do this. Now on this one, I'm going to mark where the bolts are. I'll even center punch them. So this is a lot bigger because of the thermostat housing here. So I'm going to mark these centers. On this one, I'll just measure and find the center. Got those center punched? I'll take them over to the drill and drill them out. This one's a 3/8, these 2 are 3/8, and these 2 are 1/2 inch. There. Got a coupler. Couple them together. Got a elbow here. And I can put my gauge and it'll be up here, up at the top. That should work. cut everything out with a torch. Got everything cut out. As soon as they're cooled off, I'll finish them up with a grinder. I've got them pretty smoothed up with the grinder and the belt sander. I'm going to hit them with the flap disc on the mating surface so they'll be nice and smooth. And there we go. Let's go put them on. I know they don't look perfect, but they don't have to be. We'll start here on the top. And I know I'm going to have to get creative in the middle to keep it from leaking around the outside. Let's just see if my holes are going to work. Yeah, they'll work. Going to put my O-ring up here, and when we go to assemble this for the final time, or for the leak test, I'll put a little grease around these, but I don't want grease anywhere near anything we're going to be painting here shortly. So, I found some shorter half-inch bolts. And these are my new helicoils, so they should hold good. And so far, so good. You can see that O-ring under there. And this is going to allow us the ability to tighten those bolts a little bit if we detect a small leak. Now this top one's going to be a lot trickier because not only do I need to duplicate kind of this oblong shape to seal this here, I've also got to seal it around the bolt that goes in the middle. Looks like if I just squeeze in on these long sides here of this oval, that'll come out about perfect. I think we'll be able to line that up once we get it down a little tighter. So I'll put the plate on there. I've got a bolt here, and the way I'm going to seal this is I'm going to find a small O-ring that will fit right here below the shoulder of this bolt. I'll put a little oil on there so it's lubricated and it'll spin on this plate. But also seal the head of the bolt to the plate. And ideally, you probably want a bolt that has a wider head on it or a flange. That would make this a lot easier. But I'm going to do this way before I put the stud in here. And that way it will give me a lot more leeway just to use a bolt. If I put a stud in here, then I got to seal up a nut too. So this is probably the best way to do it. I actually found something I think that's going to work a little better. It's just a copper ring for a drain plug or whatnot. And that will seal it too. But we're only going to want to squish this once. I've got extras, so I'm not going to over tighten this right now. This is just test fit. Yeah, that's going to make more contact with the top of the bolt. It'll seal it now. I'm pretty confident in that. When I was thinking about this and planning it, my first inclination was to just tap and screw a pressure gauge in here, which would work fine, and then plug this for my pressure gauge. But now you're probably wondering, how are we going to put pressure in this? Well, let me show you. I've got a Schrader valve here. This is exactly like the ones that go in the tire. Now, I purposely didn't get the snap to fit ones because I didn't know what the depth of material was that I was going to be using. But we need to drill a hole in here. It's going to have to be in here closer to the center hole. And then we can feed this through and leave it stick out the top. I'm going to go over to the drill press and drill a hole to put this valve in, probably right around here somewhere. I drilled it out with a 3/8. I'm going to finish it with a 7/16. There we go. That should fit in there perfect. Now, I'll put the nut on and the flange, and we'll tighten it up. You can see there's a rubber gasket underneath here that'll seal it from the bottom side. And I've got the nut here on the top. I can snug it up, and it'll work. And these don't have to be crazy tight. That rubber's just got to make good contact, solid contact, and it'll seal. Let's check our fitment one more time. I'm feeling pretty comfortable about this. And my valve is more than out of the way. Whichever direction I intend to take this, this will work great. There we go. Now I can snug it up a little bit. Maybe it'll train that O-ring to stay where it needs to stay. There we go. Good and sealed. And we've already figured out the gauge. I've only got one more flange to put on the bottom tank. On the bottom tank, I've got the drain plug I can put back in here to seal this up, but we still need to seal this one up. Because this one is so pockmarked in here, I'm going to use a little bit of redundancy. I've got these meter pit flange gaskets. They're for a water meter. And that one will fit right in between those holes, so that'll keep it centered. And I've got a smaller one that I'm going to just stick right here in the inside, just as a little more insurance. Sorry about that brief intermission, folks. Had a little burr in there that just would not let a bolt slide through there. Of course. I'm going to have one of them that's off-center. Let me go fix that. Is that... Oh. I chased all these holes yesterday, actually. Yeah, it's going right in there. It wants to start sideways. I don't know why. You know what? I'm going to drill that out to 7/16. It's not going to hurt anything. Put a washer if I have to. Okay. Hopefully the fourth time is the charm. Let's try this again. The reason we even have water meter O-rings is because we used to install a lot of water lines. Lots of water lines. And fix them. Alright. It worked. Just snug it up nice and even. We're squishing our O-rings, so that'll seal it. Last thing, I'm going to put the plug in here. This is where the drain is for the radiator. It actually has a tapered seat right here that fits on a tapered seat inside the radiator on this brass bushing, and it comes out the bottom here. I put a little anti-seize on here, and I know a lot of people don't like anti-seize, but we learned to absolutely love it. And the reason for that is we used to change a lot of cutting edges and things, especially in the winter when we had to do snow removal in a blizzard. And we always put that on all our ground engagement tool hardware. And that really made a difference getting those rusty bolts and stuff off of there. And there's no reason to go more than just snug on this. It just ruins the seat if you do. Because everything is bare metal right now, we want to get all this painted before we assemble the radiator and do any leak testing. Don't forget to tune in for the radiator assembly video to see this in practice. So there you have it. That's how we're going to pressure test our radiator before we put it on the machine. I do want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. You're going to need a pressure regulator. Got a piece of 1/4-inch steel here? No, that ain't 1/4-inch. Okay, it is. I was right the first time. When it wants to. When I'm not on camera, it works fine. These holes in this flange just a little bit so that my bolts will fit in there. Don't eat my mustache. I got whiskers too. Now where are you going? On my lap. Right where I don't need you. That's alright. I appreciate it. You were so excited when I come out here. You just can't wait to come see me. Don't forget to turn in for the turn in. That's weird.